Wade is guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Boom, what is going on? Happy winning on Wednesday, y'all. Hope you are having an amazing start to your week. Good to see everybody on here as always. We appreciate you. It's kind of, you're like, wait, what's going on? Where's the co-host and Mr. Merwin? Well, Mr. Merwin is out at Medicare Con, so I am rolling solo today. It's been a minute since I've done a solo show, so it's good again to see y'all all on here. Thank you for tuning in as always. You guys are probably seeing from my personal profile, not within the insurance syndicate, Facebook groups decided to not allow StreamYard or outside, basically, when we knew it was coming, but basically third-party streaming services to stream to actual groups. So we are live on my personal profile as well as my LinkedIn and the Insurance Syndicate page. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Drop your weekly wins in the comments just so we can get you up on the show and celebrate you. Definitely, we got an action-packed show, and I'm super excited, and it's actually part of one of my weekly wins is just really conversation and relationships and where that can get to you. But before I go over that one, man, my first weekly win, we had a new life agent. Shout out to Kenny. I don't know if you're following me on Facebook quite yet, but it was his, we'll call it quote unquote, first day in the office. And we basically we did House of Dreams, right? You guys all know that's the first thing I do with all of my agents before we get going. What are you guys really trying to build, right? And we understand that obviously we're in this vehicle of insurance, and if we have the understanding of what that vehicle can do, where are you really trying to go? And so we went through the House of Dreams. It was awesome. And then we did personal goals and financial goals. And when we went through the financial goals, y'all, I do this a lot. And there's a lot of the times, it's funny, our guest that we're having on to, I'm sure he's probably had similar experiences where basically we go up to 5-year goals. What up, Murray? I'm dabbing. Good to see you, brother, on here. But a lot of the times people sell them short on their own goals. And so we do 5-year goals. And for his 5-year goal, he wants to become a millionaire, wants to make at least $1 million a year within the next 5 years. And I just love seeing that, especially for somebody who's been in literally insurance for like not even 2 months, I think it is, and was doing group life. And now he's coming over to us on the independent life side. So shout out to Kenny, man. I love seeing that. And then again, back to conversations and relationships. Just have had an amazing week of just connecting and communicating with some pretty awesome individuals. And again, as you guys know, the seat that I sit in, I talk to a lot of people, and I will say I love you all, but there are some weeks that I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. But again, it's been an amazing week so far, just connecting with people. Shout out to Cody Askins. I'm actually going to be out there next week. If you guys are going to the I believe it's the Influencers Retreat. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it's going to be awesome. What's up, Mom? Good to see you on here. At least I got one person watching my show, right? But no, we shout out to Cody Askins, man. I'm excited to be out there next week. And so those are my weekly wins, y'all. Again, go ahead, drop those in the comments. We are running solo today, but I have got an amazing freaking guest. You guys have probably seen it in the description of the show. The guy's been in the NFL. He's been an insurance agent, and now he's coaching at a freaking top tier level. So I'm very excited to have him on to share just his walk and his journey, his experiences, and ultimately to where now he just broke some records. So I'm excited to have him on. So without further ado, y'all, let's go ahead and give a nice warm welcome to my brother, Mr. Taylor Symmank. What's up, my man?
What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing amazing, brother. Thank you so much for being on the show, bro. How's your week going?
It's going good, man. A lot of things moving, which is the best thing, right?
Yep.
So I'm super pumped for what's to come and what we got going on. But yeah, it's going good, brother.
Good, man. Good. Well, dude, for anybody that doesn't know Taylor Symmank, man, go ahead and just give him a 30,000-foot overview. Who is Taylor? kind of what all are you about? Maybe give them a little bit of your backstory, and we'll break some of that bits up as we go through the show.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So just short, as you alluded to, playing the NFL for a couple of years, got to run that childhood dream I had. Funny enough, you were talking about goals earlier, and I still have the piece of paper at 12 years old. I wrote on the sheet of like, this is what I wanted to play in the NFL. And I'll get into why the sheet's important, because I said, I wanted to play in the NFL. I'll play receiver, but if I have to, I'll kick. And so it was on there, and that's what I ended up doing for a lot of other reasons outside of that. But writing those goals and being clear on it is massive. It's part of my story of what I got to do and how I got to do it. So that was a fun journey with sports. Then went into insurance right after. Was the first thing. Went to my mentor, actually at a completely different company. And he was like, hey, I'm actually looking to open up this insurance agency. I want you to help me run it. And I was like, sick. I wanted to get into business and figure out how to do things from the ground up. Perfect opportunity. So that's how I got into it. We ended up going in that one, buying and selling it, and getting into the independent space and spending some time in there. Spending a little bit of time in there still now, and then transitioned into basically business consulting, helping entrepreneurs grow as in the easiest way to explain it, in a lot of different capacities. And I freaking love what I'm doing now. So
yeah, dude, I love to hear that, man. And there's so much in that we're gonna have to unpack, because it's like, dude, from NFL to insurance to now, really, I mean, again, very high level coaching. And I think, what I've definitely found, and I'm sure you found it, man, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. And there's so much opportunity out there. And man, so again, I'm super excited to have you on the show, bro. And I want to go back. This is typically where I like to go. I was like, man, let's go back to who Taylor was, because obviously to actually make it to the NFL, I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but the probability is crazy low, right? Compared to all the other, high school collegiate athletes out there. Like, the actual probability of making it to the NFL, man, it's crazy, right? But then you look at the league and you see how many people are in, like, man, what the heck? And so I want to talk about, what was it that instilled that drive? What was the game changer that made Taylor like, dude, I'm making it to the league, versus the 1,000 other players out there, or even in the same position, right? If not millions that play that position that aren't making that cut. What is that drive? Where did that come from? And ultimately, what was it that led you to the NFL?
Yeah, man. So I kind of have a cool story, and I got an inside glimpse of what it was supposed to look like and what the top 1% of that world looked like. So short story, my grandfather actually coached for the Cowboys back in the day with Tom Landry. He's in the Hall of Fame for strength coaches as far as NFL and strength conditioning, stuff like that. And so he coached with some of the legendary people know, right? Especially if you follow Dallas Cowboys, any of that team. He knows, he coached them. I've met them, the Staubachs of the world, the Randy Whites of the world, all those guys, Irvins. So I got to see it from a different perspective. I got to see the training side of it. I got to see the mindset side of it. And I got to be around like the elite, right? And so I kind of knew and the thought process of that. And he was a big sports science guy, and he was a big into a way of thinking and philosophy type stuff. So he would have me, and I would naturally, just by cause and effect, I would start studying these guys. I would study their interviews. I would study, obviously Michael Jordan. So I watched everything I could, 30 for 30, all the different things. I want to understand how they thought, like what made them perform at that level, what allowed them to do those things consistently over and over and over again. And I just kind of fell in love with like becoming this, he would call it the perfect star. Like that was his thing, because obviously tied into the Cowboys, but like becoming the most overall athlete, to where like there was no weakness to it. And so that was kind of where I fell in love with becoming a 1% and trying to find the 1% that made me better. And that's kind of still is my fascination. Now it's in business, and it's just, how do I make it a little better? How do I continue to keep growing? How does the 1% operate? What do they think? What's their day look like? How do they talk? Like all that stuff I was constantly trying to find. So I started off, a little jump start, I think. And for me, it was more of like, it was a blessing, and also felt like a responsibility at the same time, because I had the gifting of that environment. I was like, I have to do something with this, right? Like not everybody gets
there's
that.
There's a lot of people that probably wouldn't either, if we're being honest.
And so I wanted to make it count, number one. And then number two, obviously I had to have the desire to do it and that came because that was something I wanted. It just helped cultivate an environment for that dream to grow. But then all those things are a part of it. Like the statistics are still the statistics, like I don't know, it's like 0.0001 something percent of people that make it. So it's like very, very low. So there's still a lot of work on the back end of that has to be done. Just because I grew up in an environment does not mean I'm going to make it. Like there's a lot of hard things I still have to do, but at least gave me an environment to where I could be planted that would allow that dream to kind of flourish a little bit, or, water constantly. But yeah, I think to answer your question on where it all started was I saw it. And I think with any dream, any goal, I could see it. And once I see it, you can achieve it. And so for me, that was already a thing I wanted to accomplish or what I wanted to do. And then getting to see glimpses of it. I didn't probably fully understand all of it, which I didn't at the time, being so young. I just kind of saw what it was supposed to look like, which ultimately helped make decisions a lot easier for me. Because if I knew what I had to do, I knew what I shouldn't do. So it just made things a lot more streamlined for me to be able to maneuver through life without as many hiccups. And so at least in the sports world, and then obviously I try to do the same thing in business now, but that's how it all started for me, was a dream as a kid wanting to make it. And not anybody in my family had made it as a player. My grandfather made it as a coach, and I wanted to be the one to be like, all right, I'm going to make it as a player now. Like I want to be that individual. And so thankfully at this point in time in our generation lineage, I've been the one to be able to do that. And I'll hopefully my kids continue to do that or whatnot, then we continue that process. But that was kind of the thing for me. But yeah.
Isn't it crazy how similar sports are to business as well? It's like, it's so much of it applies, right? And it's, one thing I just got from that is be around the elite to become the elite. And we talk about it so much. And obviously I'm newer into the Apex, group and everything like that. But I'm a big believer anyway. It's why I'm in Apex is, dude, you got to get around the right people. And the other thing too, I think I see a lot when I'm talking with really just in general is, man, there's a lot of the times, man, people are presented an opportunity and they do not take a hold of it. Right. It's like, man, I get to be around the elite. Like, and there's probably some people out there that would, man, do I really have to go, Grandpa? And it's like, yeah, dude, can I go, Grandpa? Like, I'm trying to be around these guys, right, and see what they do so that I can mimic that, right? And then ultimately you put your own twist on it. You become Taylor, right, and you do your thing. And again, man, that's awesome. You're the one, right? I love saying that. That's if you watch Ed My Let It All, that's his thing, right? It's like, man, I'm the one, right? I changed the family tree, and that obviously can apply to more than just the family tree and finances. I also love that you said to become the overall athlete, right? And I think that's, again, what we try to encompass in business too, right? Is we want to be in that perfect seat where everything's going right. My morning was perfect. I blocked my schedule. And then obviously we know obstacles arise, right? And we have to be able to navigate that and pivot those. But my question to you is, you talked about, I wanted to be the 1%. Any advice to somebody out there that maybe is struggling, that's trying to get to the next level? What is something they could do on a daily basis to get better every single day? Like, and especially in all the people that you coach and the frameworks and everything that you implement, what's one thing, man, that you have seen that really has just helped people get better?
Yeah. And
I know there's a lot. So
there is. And I think really the first step on anybody that I work with, right, is, especially as an entrepreneur role, you got to control the day. That's just the facts, right? So as simple as it sounds, it's like, I need to know what you're doing during the day. What are you, because everybody gets 24 hours. It's just some people use 24 hours differently than others. That's just the reality of it, right? And so if I can get that under control, then we have to worry about how you think during those 24 hours and what decisions you make obviously can create or not create the dreams that you want. And so if I can, that's the first step. It's like a habit, I guess you would say, of like, I need to figure out what's going on in your day. Where are you leaking time? What are you focusing on? Because if I look at your calendar and I look at from start to finish, I can tell you most likely how successful you are, number one, and where you're going to go, like where your trajectory is. And so if I can look at that, then it allows me to be able to tell, all right, I know where you're going, and I can tell you, hey, that's not going to go where you actually want to go. Or number two, we got to fix some things if you really want to get to this goal, right? And so that for the first piece is like, I need to know what's going on. So like one thing, one guy did it to an extreme, but he put a GoPro on his chest and for 2 weeks straight, just 2 weeks straight, walked around, literally had it. So he's on his computer, he saw what he was doing. And then he had a VA go through and like categorize all of it. And he realized he was spending so much time doing absolutely useless tasks that he could have gave to somebody else or hired somebody else to do, or should even just get off his plate in general. And it bought back a lot of his time. And number one, it gained so much more hours for what he wanted to do or what he needed to do to move the business forward. And all of a sudden he skyrocketed his business because he actually started doing the things he should be doing instead of the things he's like, I got to do this. Like we found better ways to do it. So point being is, once we get understanding of that, then we maneuver into, okay, cool. How are we effectively seeing those moments and the mindset we need to have change, whatever it looks like. But that'd be the first step, is I need to know what you're doing every single day, because I can tell where you're going or where you are.
So funny how many people probably don't use a calendar, right? Because they don't want to see how little they're actually doing throughout the day.
Which is a perfect giveaway. Like, hey, I'm probably leaking somewhere.
Well, I think, man, it's funny. Tony talks about it, man, where sometimes our head is so far into the hood that we can't actually ever like solve the problem of the vehicle, right? It's because, dude, get your head out of the hood and like actually get a full scope, right? Like look at the whole vehicle, look at the whole problem, right? To really try and diagnose it. I think that's so important, man, because a lot of the times when I'm talking with agents, man, it is kind of like they're so hyper focused on one thing, that or there's so much stuff that's stacked up. And it's fun. Well, you actually got to meet Lily behind the scenes, and so she's our producer of the show. Shout out to Viva Virtual Solutions as well, man. We appreciate y'all. Dude, you don't know how much you're actually doing until you really take the time to note it out. And I call it like a roadmap, right? Roadmap it out. Like, what am I actually doing? Even just in a specific, we'll say, activity, right? Obviously, I'm wearing a few different hats, but let's just talk specific to the insurance syndicate or all my social media stuff and YouTube and all that. And you start breaking it down, and it's like, oh my gosh, man. Like, I had no idea, like, this is how much I'm actually doing. But I think also writing it down and structuring it makes you more efficient if you do not have the ability to, let's call it, we'll say, outsource it, like reaching out to Viva to where, hey, Lily is my full-time freaking producer, man, and she's awesome. And I don't know if I could ever go without it because I don't want to go back to doing everything. But it's so important. I love that you said that, man, because it's like, what are you really doing every single day? Some people even go down to like the 10-minute, hey, every 10 minutes, man, just a little mental note, every 30 minutes, every hour, document what you just did and do that for, I love that he's for 2 weeks, man, straight GoPro. And that's great content, if we're being honest. It's like a day in the life, you know. That's so good, man. I want to ask you this, because so we've actually had some other retired NFL players on the show as well. You probably know of Derek Johnson of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a good buddy of mine. And so just hearing kind of his transition, you know, going from the league into obviously something completely different, right? And to get into the league, you dedicated your entire life to that, right? I mean, you're not really doing much else if you're trying to make it to the NFL, and you're actually trying to make it to the NFL, right? Not just say, oh yeah, I'm going to go. It's like, nah, man, I'm going to make it. What did that look like? Did you have a tough transition getting out of the league, or was it, man, this was kind of like a blessing? I was kind of ready to be done. Like, hey, I hit my 2 years, my whatever, and I did it. I made it as a player. Or was it, man, it was kind of tough, right? And so it's like, man, it kind of sucks that I wanted to be in the league longer. Can you talk through some of that mindset and just what that transition was?
Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, that was a hard transition for me, because my goal was to play 10 years. That was like the rule was I'm going to play 10 years, whatever it would be. And I ended up playing about 4 years to basically hurt my hip flexor, got hurt. And that transition was kind of at that space, the timing of all the things just didn't work out the way that I wanted to. And so at that point in time, it was more of figuring out, okay, cool. I've always wanted to go into business. This was kind of the perfect time to do that. And then transitioning out. But that transition out, I mean, like you alluded to, it's like, I've done the work for this particular thing for 25, 26, 27 years at this point. And now it's like, hey, I need you to kind of start over. I'm like, wait.
And insurance too. Talk about a slap to the face. Right.
Yeah. So it was just a weird mental game I was playing. And it took me some time to realize all the things that I learned and all the things that I developed as habits and skills that allow me to perform at a high level did transfer over into business. But it took me some time, because like it felt at first, I was like, there's no way this is all going to transition. I'm on a field, I'm running around, I'm not at a desk, I'm not on the phone, I'm just doing me, I'm doing my body, or in its business. They obviously makes important like what you look like, but at the same time, it's like I can be really successful and be totally out of shape as well. Like it was just like, it was different. So I was like, all the things I've worked for doesn't really correlate to success in what I'm doing now. But the more I got in it, the more I kind of dug deeper, I realized like, oh, like there's a lot of patterns that allow me to be successful. And so it ended up being a huge blessing in that regard. And it wasn't time wasted, but at first it was like, all right, we're starting from ground zero. We became the top 1% in the world. Now we're at the bottom 99%, right?
Yep.
And so there was a lot of things that I had to work through and thought processes of building that back up, of confidence in something completely different that I didn't have a full understanding of, I knew about, but all the habits and things that I'd built and characteristics allow me to kind of skyrocket in that approach as well as in that business when I stepped into it. Because a lot of the things, as you know, it's not that business is hard. It's just hard to do those consistent things over and over and over again, and stick true to who you are and the integrity of that as a brand, whatever, amidst all the pressure that gets thrown on you every single day. So like, I was used to the pressure. I was used to everything getting thrown on me. I was used to performing, even though I didn't feel like it. I was used to showing up. I was used to doing the long nights. I was used to waking up early. I was used to putting in the work of what was needed. It was just, I was changing the medium at which I was doing. Right. And so same thing happens when people are shifting from job to job, right? Like that happens too. It doesn't have to be from career to, completely different thing. It's the same framework. It's like, okay, cool. I didn't lose all these things I built over here. I just got to redirect it and reframe how I see it, because I didn't lose it all. And so for me, that transition was a little tough at the beginning. And then once it got rolling, I realized, dang, like it's kind of like when you, like people talk about like the bow and arrow, someone stretching you back. I felt like in that moment I had been stretched back to where I felt backwards. Like I was going like, I'm so far behind. But then once I realized that was a stretch, boom, it took off. And I was like, okay, this is starting to make sense. And then once I got the lingo, once I understood how it worked, then it was just off to the races. And I started to see me pass some people that had been in it for longer, because I don't think it matters how long someone's been in an industry. I think it matters in how long someone really will how long someone will endure for that first process. And then number two, how much they can correlate all those different, it all comes down to who they are, right? At the end of the day, like we do business with who people are and what they stand for, and like all the different characteristics, habits, and stuff like that makes them successful. I mean, people can be successful in any industry because success leaves clues. And at the end of the day, people that are consistent, people that are committed, people that will stay true to who they are, and they'll be honorable and be all these different things, and then show up and do the work and, operate that way all the time, they'll be successful no matter what they do. Like those are the things, if we can dial those in, I can change your job. If you keep showing up the exact same way with the same enthusiasm and all that kind of stuff, you're bound to be successful. Like just give it some time for you to learn the lingo, the language, and then all of a sudden it will take off. And so I think people don't give themselves enough credit for those things, because no one's talking around like, oh, this guy's got great character. Like some people talk about that and like talk about like their abilities and their characteristics of who they are as a person. But we don't talk about that much. We talk about the money they're making right now. We talk about the things that, the outward appearance. But if we're not careful, what ends up happening is those people end up passing them, and the only people that are paying attention are the only ones that see it. Or they'll be the friends where I got a lot in football, actually. It's like, oh, I always knew you'd be successful. I'm like, no, you were the person that said, bro, it's a stupid dream. Go to work at 9 to 5. You know what I mean? It's just, it always finds its way out. So you have to know your dream, your goal, and then truly just focus on the things that actually matter. And the other stuff you can learn.
And I love that you said the actual tenure, right? The experience is actually not that important, right? And I 1,000% agree. And you talked about one of those clues that success leaves. One of those clues is hard work beats talent when talent don't work. And I think a lot of the times people will associate talent to tenure, which you should be more talented, hopefully, the longer you've been in the space, right? But at the same time, it's like the double-edged sword that, man, and we've definitely see it in the insurance industry. And it's funny. It's actually, you talked about, career change. There's a lot of exits happening in the insurance industry right now because all this talent, they ain't used to having to work like this. And that's where I'm seeing the young, hungry, this dude, 2 months into insurance is trying to come in and make $1 million in the next 5 years. And I'm showing him the numbers and he's like, I'm going to do it before then. Right. And it's like, now he has not near the talent like these guys, but man, he's like, I'm working 18 hours a day right now doing 4 other jobs. I'm like, bro, if you work 18-hour days in insurance, bro, you are definitely going to make $1 million before 5 years. And I love that you said that, because you can get a young, hungry, green person coming in here and, bro, they can do. And it is great. I think that also kind of goes back to, and this is actually a perfect pivot, because I want to talk about mentorship and coaching. I think if given the right resources, which if we're being honest, guys, you are given. You may not 100% be handed it, but y'all, you got podcasts like this, you've got Facebook groups, you've got YouTube, Google, you've got your actual manuals, right? Like you have the resources to be really good, right? But I think, talking to these agents when they are new and like, yo, dude, I didn't have a Joe back when I started, right? I remember our first ever direct appointment, man. Safeco's like, all right, we're going to give you the direct, which if anybody knows in our space, I'm kind of probably in the weeds here, but it's not really a thing right now, right? And so they give it to us, and I come from the captive world where, hey, I was trained very heavily in that space to where then it was, hey, best of luck to you. And I'm over here like, dude, I have no idea. We couldn't even figure out how to make our phones work the first day, right? But the reason I say that is, man, what took me probably 3 years to figure out, you've got agents figuring it out in 6 months now. And I think, again, just because of how much is out there, because of, again, it's why I love doing this show, man, is trying to pour back into them. But ultimately, I guess that takes us kind of to the next bit that I want to talk about. What got you into what got you so excited that, hey, I'm going to kind of pivot away from insurance? And I know you're still in this space, but just definitely at a different level, not necessarily working within, right? Like being a producer, but you're still in the space. What pushed you to kind of make that pivot into coaching and mentorship? Was that going back to grandpa, right? Or something like that? It runs in the family. Is it in the lineage, or is it?
Man, it might just be.
Right.
But yeah, for me, man, it was, and probably too, being in the insurance space, a lot of people can sit on their book of business and just sit there and just like collect the residuals. It's great because they put in the work before. But when I was coming into insurance, I was the hungry guy. I was like, man, I'm out to prove. I didn't get to play the 10 years I wanted in the NFL. I'm out to prove and get to a space where I'm like, I freaking did it. And now I did it in 2 different spaces. I did it in sports and I did it in business. I wanted to be like undeniable, if that makes sense. And so for me, I was hungry. And so like people are like, no, we'll work out. I'm like, I can't manage that. I got to go. Because I have certain goals that I want to hit, I want to get to. And so now for me, that was kind of where it started. And then I started to realize that in sports, I had the structure of what it took to be successful. And I didn't realize this till after. It's like in sports, and everybody that's played sports, if I listen to this, understands, like, we get told who our coaches are. We get told who our staff, like the training staff and things like that are. They're in place. We have our position coaches. We have all these different people that are in place. We have the head coach. Like, we have all that. And that was not something I put in place. It was something that was put in place, and I came into the system.
Yep.
But when you go out into, it's called the real world or business, it's like, hey, figure it out. It's your team. And so what ends up happening is, like, I didn't have a team around me to see and keep me accountable and see the different spots. Even though maybe I didn't always agree with my position coach, he was there to see things and help make me better, help me to see things that maybe I should have saw that I didn't see in the moment, I forgot about, and whatever it may be. I needed to create that same environment in my world and in business. So I needed to get around people that were like CEO type head coach people. I needed to get around position coach type people. I needed to get around staff that could keep me accountable. So I had to start creating this ecosystem. If I'm a CEO, I needed to create my board of advisors. I needed to create my room of people that would keep me, in line and keep me striving to see things maybe I don't see yet, but perspectives because they're further along or whatever. They've seen things I haven't seen. What have they seen film that I hadn't watched yet? Like, whatever they look like, I had to create that now. Before, it was created for me, and it led to success at a high level. And I was like, okay, cool. That's why people are successful. They have a team around, they have this thing, this culture, then it creates it. It was my responsibility to create that. No one was going to create it for me, most likely, unless I got lucky and got placed in a community or a space where I had it. I had to co-create it. And so then now for me, I was looking for, how do I create this environment? How do I create people that are way ahead of me that are doing it in multiple industries? How do I get around people that are excelling in top 1% of the world in business, investing, all these different things? I had to get around it because if I couldn't see it, I don't know if it's even real, right? And like, you can hear about it in a book, but when you see it in person, you see them actually making the transactions, you see how they navigated that conversation. That's a completely different ballgame, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's where it was, like, okay, cool, I've got to get around this. And that's kind of where it went. I got connected with Apex now and Ryan Stewman, but I looked around in a lot of places and people and environments of, like, I wanted to get around people that are super successful in business in multiple areas and not just the one person. There was multiple people that were winning at a high level. And so I was looking for a culture and environment of people, because Sometimes it's few and far between, which sucks, right? And so when you find the group or hub of them, it's like, cool, we found it. And so once I found it from there, I kind of latched on. I was like, okay, this is what I can use to continue to keep growing and get in an environment that allows me to do that, because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be the top 1% in business again. And the only way to do that was to get around the top 1%, because I needed to know what it looked like day in and day out. And I needed to know and keep them striving. The same way I walk into a locker room, and I've been to multiple different teams in college and pros. I could walk in the locker room like, we're going to be good, but this is not the team. I can tell you that right now. It's not the staff. I know what winning looks like. I've been a part of a lot of winning teams, and this is not the one. We may get lucky and have an off chance at that, or we may not. And then I've been in a lot of the locker rooms where I walk in, I'm like, we legitimately have a shot at winning this whole thing, for real. And so there's a
feel it when you walk in there.
You do, right? And so I needed to create that and get around people that I'm like, all right, this is what winning's supposed to look like. And people are winning at that level and constantly trying to grow. I needed that culture like I did back in sports. And so when I found people that were striving, were looking to keep growing, were looking to do big things, I'm like, I can run with you. We'll challenge each other. We'll push each other. We'll think the same way. We'll constantly be excited about where we're going. We'll help each other grow. That's what I was used to. That's what I wanted. And I think the more I got around those individuals in top 1% in business now, I realized that they operated that same way, except the circles were small, just like in sports teams. You got 22 guys that start. I mean, that's pretty much it. A full team is maybe 100 until you start cutting down to, preseason and all that stuff. That's a small team. If you think about it in the grand scheme of the entire world, same thing happens in companies. And so when I started to see the correlations between those two, I started to make more sense. I'm like, oh, I've been given the blueprint. Now I just got to manually go out there and play this different game. I'm playing on a different field. I was playing on a sports field with lines, 100 yards. Now I'm playing on a different field, but the game is still the same, right? And so that's where it kind of unlocked and went into the coaching route. And then I've basically got a freaking PhD in a year, it seems like, of just being around it, which is the cool part about being around people that are killing it at top 1%, is because you either can quit and be like, I feel like too less than, and it's not for me. Or you can be like, I'm going to dive in. I'll be the guy that doesn't know anything in the room. I'll be quiet and learn. And all of a sudden, soon you're the guy talking on the stage. Soon you're the guy leading the meeting, because you're just soaking up the information. Oh, that's how it works. And you're okay to be humble for a second, because that's where you start to continue to keep growing. As long as I keep working and doing the things, all of a sudden you look up and it's like, oh, it actually makes sense. I started applying the things that I'm seeing and put in the work, and all of a sudden I'm here. So
there's no stupid question when you're first starting. I mean, I preach that, man. And I didn't want to bug you or anything. And I'm like, yeah, but bug me. I've done this for years, right? I am the resource. I don't that's what I'm here for, right? And there's no stupid question. And I think that is, sometimes you do have to swallow that, right? Especially when you are coming from success in another space, and then it's like, man, I'm the low dude on the totem pole now, man. But I wanted to actually bring this up, and I got a couple things from that, but a lot of what and I used to have this, and this is obviously since changed. It's what changed our entire organization, was the expense versus investment mindset. How many times do you see people that find the group, they see the team, they found the team, they want to be a part of the team, but it costs a little bit, right? And that's honestly, you talk about small circles. It's like, well, that's why the circle's tight, right? Because you got to pay to play. And for me, that was always an expense. It was, oh man, I got to spend that. And it's like, man, when I shifted that to, Apex for 3,000 investment. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's an investment, right? And I've already made it back in relationships and obviously even just the conversations we've had and some of the things we've talked about. It's like, dude, yeah, I'll pay to play for that team all freaking day. And I think so many people want to get paid by the team to play. And it's like, yeah, it's a little bit different in business, man, if you're trying to get around the elite, right? And I'm definitely paying, why would I not pay that much for, at least, even if it's an annual subscription, to be in a network of thousands of individuals that are, for the most part, doing things bigger and better than me, right? Or in a different, to your point, to a different degree, or in a different space where, hey, I want multiple streams of revenue coming in, right? That's the most successful people. They got 6 to 7 streams of income. And I'm not trying to be a jack of all trades, but I do want multiple streams of income. So I should probably learn from other people that are doing it better than me or just doing it.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing too with that, right? And that's the thing I learned as well is like, because the concept was like, man, I want to only be in this industry. But what I learned is that sometimes the cutting edge things is because I'll pick up something from another industry that no one's doing in my industry, and it works. And I'm like, that makes sense how it could work here. And it's working over here, so I know it works. And I started applying it. And now I'm the only person doing it. I just created this whole different pipeline or income stream that was in my own industry because no one else was doing it, because no one was willing to get around other people because like they don't understand my industry. But sometimes they need a new voice, they need a new metric, they need a new system, they need a new whatever that may be working that is people in your industry don't know yet, because that's the hardest part. And I'm not sure who says it, maybe it's Grant Cardone, but it's like the biggest what is the word he uses? Basically the whole concept is the biggest threat to a millionaire is being a millionaire.
Yeah.
And it's because it's the same thing in industries, right? It's like, if we've always done it this way, okay, hold on. Someone needs to come in from the outside and like, hasn't always done it the way we've done it. Like that's what's going to create this blue ocean. If everybody's read the book, Blue Ocean Strategy, it's an incredible book, which talks about that. It's like we operate in this red ocean where everybody's eating from. And then we can create a whole, like most companies that we know that are massive created a blue ocean, which means like there was no one competing in that space because they weren't doing it yet. But they had time to sit there and they were applying different things that no one else in their space was. They thought differently than everybody else in the industry. They created a whole new stream of income that soon everybody followed them. But sometimes we don't do that because like, oh, it always has to be this way. Why does it have to be that way?
Yep.
Who made the rules that it had to be that way until someone created it, right? Like, so we have to start thinking a little different. So that the plus point being, it's like getting around other people in other industries allows us to think better for our industry that we're in, on top of other income streams if we want to go that route for sure. But I think too, like going back to your point of like the sacrifice, I use it as like sacrifice or investment. Like, so there's a space.
You can tell Taylor sells consultation pack. It's an egg. You just got to sacrifice, baby. Just a little blood, sweat, and tears. Let's get it.
I think of it like this, right? It's like, let's say you want to make $1 million, and or let's say it's you, right? It's like, I want to make $1 million, and I know that you have you've made the $1 million and you know how to help me make $1 million. So technically, this decision of me working with you is $1 million decision. So in all honesty, it should cost me $1 million.
Right.
Like, so every day that goes by that I don't make that decision, it's costing me that amount of money, because guess what? If I got with this person or I got around this people or whatever that caused me to make $1 million that are in my account, then I'm waiting for this amount of money to hit my account, knowing good and well they can help or who can help get to that particular space. So now a decision is every day. For example, if it's whatever
I can't afford to not afford it. Right.
Yeah, it's not important anymore. It's really, how do you want to reach the goal? Yes, okay, then let's go do it. I think a lot of times people don't want to make the sacrifice or make the investment or whatever it is because at some level there's a space where they also too don't believe that they'll do it. Like they won't do the work that will keep up with it. Because the reality is that someone that's either going in that path or doing it, they know they can because they're doing it. And so now it's a belief exchange now, right? And so then now it's like, okay, cool, I got to get you to believe this and I need you to see it long enough, which is why you got to get around it to see it. And then once you see it, all of a sudden you start taking off. And then that's when it starts to be fun, right? And so I don't think it's ever anything that regarding to investment or price, really, at the end of the day. I think there's moments and spaces because we all find ways to make it happen. For example, if I got sick and I got, let's just call it cancer, and I didn't have insurance to cover for it, but I needed to, in order to be there for everybody else in my family and provide, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to figure out how to do that, right? Like there's no way I'm not going to. And so the same thing applies. It's like, now, if you want to get your business to where you make $10 million a year, it's the same thing applies. It's okay. What do I need to do? Give me the blueprint. Show me how to do it. I'm willing to do the work. Let's make it happen. And so I think that's where it happens.
Sitting in your seat, this is something I definitely struggle with, right? Because you just said, man, I just got to get them to believe it. And man, there's a lot of the times, dude, where I believe it more than they do, or I want it for them more than they do. Is that ever something you struggle with? Just when, again, you're mentoring, consulting.
100%.
Yeah. It's like, bro, how do you not see it? I want it for you. You're so close. And it's like, oh, but then it's a detriment to me because then I want it more than them. I'm like up at night stressed for somebody else, right? And there's just that line you got to draw. And that is where I struggle. I struggle with, where do I draw the line of, okay, I want it more than you. How do you get through that, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a constant thing because everybody's different, right? And so I think obviously how you show up, like whether it be the energy around it and like how you carry yourself, that stuff's transferable. And sometimes people don't believe it, don't have the charismatic thing of like, I'm gonna go they don't have that. So they need to see it from somebody else, or like let them borrow your faith on it, right? Like sometimes people need to borrow faith from somebody else until they build their own. And I think that's a process that requires patience on the person giving it, number one, and then seeing the action of them doing the work and then to continue giving it. But I really think that's why I believe so much into, and that's why I even got connected with Apex. Like that's what it was. And sports was the same thing. Once I got in the locker room of people, I'd go find the people that were basically the Pro Bowl guys the previous year, guys that were going to be in the Hall of Fame soon. I wanted to get around them because they operated differently. They viewed how their body, they treated themselves different. They operated more differently, like all outside the field too. Same thing in business. I wanted to get around people that operated that way. I needed the closeness. I needed like the interlock of the arms. And that's what I think is worth it, because we need to borrow sometimes faith or borrow belief from other people because we don't have it for ourselves. But if we're the only one in the equation and we don't have a team, we don't have people around us, we're trying to borrow it from something that's not there. So we have to get around people that are believing for theirs as well and for themselves. And I can borrow on them. Oh, I see that they're winning. It must. And that's enough to keep you going until you get your own. And then you start doing the same thing again, the new level, and you have a new person seeing it done before. Like, oh, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And you start getting this belief, right? So the environment is literally essential, I think, to anything that you do, because you have to get close enough to where it can like rub off on you.
Transfer, right?
It has to go to transfer. And so if you're not in an environment that allows you to be transferable, that's, I think, the biggest mistake, because we try to run the race on our own and then we say, maybe it's just not meant for me. No, bro. Like that's the thought process, is you're not believing in yourself. And that's where the hardest part, which you kind of alluded to, is like, I was just on a call the other day actually. And it was with who was it? Basically the person that looked over some of their stuff for finances, and he hadn't done something yet, right? Like he hadn't done the numbers in which we've done before for people. And so when I would say numbers of what we could do for this individual, he was like, I could see on his face, like, I don't know if they can do that. You know, we're growing at 32% a year. It's great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, we could get you like 100, 200%. I've seen it done. Like we did it with multiple people.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know, that's possible. I didn't say it, but I saw it.
Yeah, you can read it.
Is that environment for that individual that was having that person on their team now gets stunted, because they're not in a room of like, you could literally triple your business in a year. I've seen it done, and we've done it multiple times. And so they've got to they got to borrow the belief from me, because I have done it and are doing it. And so then now that environment, they have to choose who they want to associate with, right? And be around, because each are going to lead to a result. Each is going to lead to down their own path. Which one are you going to be? And so it's real, and it's the hard part, because at that point, it's like, I know we can do it. Like, I know I've seen it. It's done. And you have all the different things that you need. It's just, I need you to believe in me long enough to continue to keep doing the actions. And so, yeah, it's a game you play as a coach.
It's getting some people through complacency too. You know, it's like, dude, I'm growing over 30% year over year, man. Like, I don't need, and it's like, well, yeah, but bro, like you could retire. Like if we were to do this, you could retire like 10, 15 years earlier than if you continue to grow at 30%. Right. This is something I got from earlier, and I wanted to come back to it because I think it's super powerful. We're sitting here talking about culture, environment, and ultimately your team. Earlier, you were talking about the overall athlete, right? And I think the overall athlete understands their role, right? Or the overall, what we'll call it, the full encompassing person, right? Or business person, whatever you want to call it, right? The overall athlete that is like, they're killing it, right? I think the overall player, the overall person in business is the person that understands their role and understands that, hey, and it's my favorite saying, y'all, if you want to go fast, you do it alone. We're talking about the innovators, right? Where, man, I got this thing and I got to go quick. And then as soon as that new thing that they got from over there and they did it over here, but they decided to do it by themselves because they thought they could do it, it's like, and then flash in the pan and they're gone. And so the overall player, I think, understands that you don't go anywhere far or really make an impact without a team. And I think the team needs to understand their roles within the team as well. That's what makes everybody an overall player, is like having an overall team where everybody knows the seat that they're sitting in. I think that also can be difficult, right? Determining people's roles. I think, and also there's shift in roles where people will come in for sales. Alex Hankey, my service manager, been with Redwood day one. I love you, Hankey, but he was not good at sales, right? He came in at sales, but then now he's like one of the freaking best service people in the freaking country, runs a whole team of virtual assistants, like knows every system, every carrier. I mean, the dude is a freaking encyclopedia when it comes to how to retain and manage a book of business and insurance, right? And so I think it's defining those roles. But then what I wanted to ask you is, in we'll say the most successful businesses that either you've been around or you've been hired on to consult and scale, and I know we've had those conversations back behind scenes, when it comes to defining roles, what are the most important roles to have on your team when it comes to running a business? And I think this can apply to insurance. This can apply to anywhere where you have a team, which I think if you don't have a team, you're not going to go very far. You need to have people around you, the right people around you, in order to truly make an impact. And ultimately, the bigger the impact, ultimately that typically is the more revenue coming your way. So what are the most important roles somebody should have in their team?
100%. And so one thing too, the reason why you need it, especially in business, you need a team, is because you're capped at the amount of hours you have in a day. And so if you can bring in other individuals, it helps you maximize more, because you can only do so much. Like, you are tapped out at some point. Mm-hmm. And as the business gets bigger, either you have to continue to keep growing, or how you are seen to the client now decreases because you can't keep up with the amount of business that you have, right? So then now the client facing thing can drop, your standard drops, which you may have not had in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So not only for that, but for two, being able to do and reach your goals faster. But as far as first hire, always should be an assistant. Number one. So if you're starting to try to figure out, it should be an assistant doing things that are, as you would like say, the things that you like, for the guy, for example, the GoPro guy, he was doing things and he saw, I'm like, why am I doing this particular task? Whether it be checking in an email or responding to different texts on the personal side of things, or like scheduling appointments, like stuff, whatever it may be, right? Why I can easily have someone else that's not knowledgeable what I know do that. And it's pretty easy to do that. Okay, cool. Assistant, check. That's their list. So if I'm going through and I'm hiring somebody, cool, this is my assistant, I need you to walk through. This is where, like, the first step, and I mentioned before at the beginning of this call, was to know what's going on in your day, is because now I can extract the things that don't need to be in my day that still need to get done and hand that over and make that their day. And then hand things as I get going of what I can do. And you get a more refined system to where they understand you can hand things that have a little bit more responsibility to them and a little bit more wherewithal of what's going on. But in the beginning, they can do things that don't necessarily, they don't have to know all the stuff you know. Perfect. Let them do that. Let that happen, right?
If they did, they probably wouldn't be in the assistant seat, for being honest.
Exactly.
Not to say they can't rank out of that, right? But you got to start somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so I think that's the first hire, is the assistant, right? And then depending upon what you're in and the industry that you're in, you start looking, okay, cool. Do I go the sales route next? Do I go to like a management service route next? Like, you kind of just depend on what your focus is in the business, and it's different for each. And then continue to scale from there, right? And then it's about comp plans and going that direction. But like, I think the role first is trying to duplicate yourself is the first role, and doing the things that only you can do, trying to get to the space where like your day should consist of only things you can do. Like, you are the only person that can do that. That's what your day should be full of. That moves the needle the most, because it's only you, right? No one else can do this particular, like, this whole call right now besides you, because it's yours, right? Like, you couldn't have a VA come on here and do it. It wouldn't be yours.
Lily, you want to try that?
But it's like, there's certain things that only you can do, right? But there's other things that you don't necessarily have to do. And so the whole point is to eventually wean out to where you're doing all the things that move the needle the most, that need to be done by you particularly. And then getting rid of all the other things that you don't have to do is a perfect world, because now you can start, when you get to that place and you have a team and everything around you, and you're doing those things that move the needle, Now you start stepping into this game, which Patrick David talks about, is like you start playing 5 moves ahead, right? You start being, okay, cool. Like I don't have to worry about today. I don't have to manage what's going on right now. I'm thinking about, okay, next year, if we make this decision, how's that affect next year? Oh, cool. And then I start getting that down. Then I'm 2 years ahead. Okay, cool. If I make this decision and we put this person in place, we can get this attention. And you start thinking 2 years ahead. And then you start thinking, okay, cool. If we do this consistently for 5 years, we could be a $200 million company. And then we get this now, since we're a $2 million company, now I've got to get these people because we go to PE firms. We got to get this set up. So I'm building these relationships right now. That is a way better use of your time than, I got to schedule all these appointments. I got to respond to all these DMs. I got to do it. Like, hold on, like we're missing the boat, right? So I think at that point, it scales itself depending on what your goal is. But it has to start with multiplying yourself, and then you start servicing and multiplying people that are in your organization as well.
Now. And that's, dude, you got to understand, y'all, you're never going to find another Taylor. You're never going to find another Joe, right? And I think that is the holdup. And hear me when I say, I'm speaking to everybody on this one. Do not wait 5 years to learn everything that you can at all possible before you start trying to bring people and showing them this opportunity. Going back to that agent I was training yesterday, we're going through the House of Dreams, and it kills me, man, because I see so many agents, and don't get me wrong, they're successful and they're making great money and living a good life, but they're still rolling solo years into this thing because they still, man, I just don't know 100% everything. I'm like, that's what makes you that much more valuable, especially as a leader when you're bringing, especially, I'll speak specifically to the sales side, especially in sales, dude, when you're in the trenches selling with them and learning, hey, mate, you got a step up, right? But when you're in the trenches doing it with them, dude, that's what makes the team freaking this, right? And so that is for everybody, I'm going to say it louder for those in the back. Do not wait to know everything before you start showing people this amazing opportunity, because it can expect, and again, specific to insurance, but this industry can change lives. There's other industries out there that can, but y'all, I'm telling you, if you guys are sitting in the vehicle of insurance, you need to show people this freaking car, not drive and put a bunch of miles on it before you pick up any passengers. You got to show it to them. And man, I think you hit the nail on the head with that too, when it comes to defining the roles, right? And having that, because once you get that set, where I get to work more on the business versus in the business. I think, hey, work in the business, learn the rope. You should know your product and your industry, right? But then, man, once you get to start working on the business is what allows you to really have, that free, we'll call it free time, but it's not really free time. It's more of, okay, man, I'm talking 5 years down the road, how these decisions are going to impact our organization. And that's ultimately where you want to be. I think also too, it's understanding the value of your time and your knowledge. Where, hey, why are you doing all these things that are kind of miscellaneous? And not to, again, take away from the assistant, right? And again, shout out to Viva. If you guys are looking for a virtual assistant, hit up Viva, because they have amazing, what we'll call virtual assistants, right? And again, not to like dunk on that profession, or that is needed, right? And I love those people, but you really need to understand your value, the time, right? Like, how much is your time really worth? And I think that's also something too, going back to what we started the show with, man, you got to get your head out the hood and look at the whole picture. Like, how much is your time really worth? I think I learned that the hard way. Because, and Taylor, you know me, it's probably how we first even connected. It's, dude, I'll get on a call with anybody and share I'll give you the whole playbook, man. And everybody's like, man, you're such an open book. And it's like, yeah, because you just have to do it, better than me, which I'm okay with. But you got to understand the value of your time. And the last bit I think I got on the recruiting side of things, going back to, again, you're never going to have a Taylor or a Joe, is go find, Perry Lunsford said this. Shout out to Perry. Love you, man. Healthy insurance dude. He's actually out of your neck of the woods, Taylor. You probably see his ads. Big health guy, bald dude. But yeah, he's everywhere. But he said, man, I'll never find another Perry. But man, let me go find 2 people that can do 50% of what I can do. Mm-hmm. And then now I've got another Perry, right? It's not the exact same, right? But like, hey, they don't have to have all of the same skills and everything for you to be able to give them more responsibility so that you can get to the next 5 moves, right? Or maybe you're on move 2 and, man, I need to push the needle to move 3. Go find 2 people that can do half of what you can do, and now you've got a you, right? I love that he said that. I think that's so valuable, man.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, like when looking at whether it be VA, whether look at being an assistant, if they can do 70, 80% of what you can do or as good as you just bought back 80% of that. Say it's an hour, right? And then an hour, they can do 80% of what you could have done. Maybe you could have done 20% extra more because of your knowledge and experience. Okay, if I got 80% done over a given day, each hour, 8 hours a day, I got a lot more done than not, right? So like I can now become this omnipresent space, and I can do a lot of different things, and I can train the 20%. And so there's a lot of different things that I can do. We can slowly build that up, but I would much rather take 80% of something than 0% of something else. Right. Like it's an obvious understanding of those two. And so as I start to build and start doing that, then now it becomes, okay, cool. How do we effectively maneuver that stuff? But yeah, I agree with that completely.
What's really cool is the assistants it's the student surpasses the mentor, right? Like, I mean, what Lily does now. Yeah, what Lily does now. I mean, she's clipping stuff up on CapCut. She's using AI tools. She freaking created our whole TikTok and everything for us. And that's all like, I'm not even on. So it's cool to see all that or creating all the really cool thumbnails that are needed, right, for the content that they're pushing out. And it's like, I wouldn't have done that, right? So it's like, it's really cool to see that. Man, as this has been freaking awesome, dude. As we close out, what is, I guess, one last bit? What's like a golden nugget you could leave everybody with when it comes to running their business, scaling their business? I don't really care. Like, what is just one thing you think you can leave them with? And then ultimately, how can people reach out, touch base with you? Guys, again, I'll speak very highly of Taylor. I literally just signed with him through him with Apex probably a few weeks ago, and it's been an amazing ride already just in the first like month. So speak very highly of Taylor. You guys, if you are looking for somebody in that kind of mentorship consultation space, if you are trying to scale and do so efficiently, you need to freaking talk to the guy. So with that being said, man, leave him a gold nugget, and then how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, 100%. So as far as golden nugget, kind of going back to, I do believe environment is everything, because that's what's worked for me since I was a kid to the time I got into the NFL and in college and in all the things in business. People, we grow by, like, the first step of anything to success is first we model it, right? So if our environment doesn't have anything worthy of modeling, we're going to model something incorrectly, and we'll be upset with why we got a result. So I got to get around an environment that's worthy of being modeled, right? Or people that are worthy of being modeled. And then from there, I can start to create a version of myself in there. And I start to get into the third phase as I get innovative. I create my own way within that. But it usually has to start with the model. I got to model it first. I got to represent what that is. Because if I was there, I would already be there. That's just the facts, right? So if I'm not, I've got to find someone I can model really well, that I align with and agree with and stuff like that. So I would say, like, stretch yourself to get in spaces like that or around people, and then be habitual and consistent with keeping that person or group or whatever around you constantly, not just when things are going well, not just when things are terrible. When things are going well, then I'm too busy for them. No, like, you got to continue that, because that's what keeps you moving forward. Because you don't think, then people are going through these cycles. It's like, oh, okay, well, we're back again. We did really, really well. Then we get back around those people that we need to. Right. And so it's a long journey that doesn't need to happen. So that's what I would say is, like, get in an environment that's cultivating, and then you can model is like the biggest nugget I can leave people with, because there's endless things I can say, but it all kind of stems back to that. That's why I mention it. And then as far as getting connected, I mean, I can give you guys, if you're listening, my cell phone. I operate that way. Just because I like the personal touch. I like to be able to connect with people. I like to be able to do that. And then we'll hop on Zoom calls or whatever we need to do from there. But yeah, my cell phone number is 469-237-6329. That's my personal cell phone that my mom texts me on. So, like, don't hit me up for just random stuff. But
hey,
also,
man, my mom was on the show. I don't know if she's still watching, but
I love it. So that's what I'm saying. I want you guys to text me and reach out. I love to get to meet with any of you guys. Truly, I love doing that kind of stuff, and getting to meet everybody, what's going on, where I can help out, what I can direct to, wherever it may be. I want to win, and I like doing life with winners. And so if I can be a part of it and help people win, then it's fulfilling to me at the same time, as well as getting to be around other people that will do it as well. So that's how you connect me. Obviously, social media, I'm pretty much on all those, on Instagram at TSym, and then, which is TSYMM, and then Facebook, obviously it's my full name, Taylor Symmank. But yeah, those are the spaces. Text me is easiest probably. But yeah, definitely connect with me on social, and I'd love to get to meet some of you guys that are on here. And then lastly, I mean, obviously, if you're looking for something like that, Apex truly is. I'm a product of the product, if that makes sense. I got connected to it as well, because I wanted an environment. I was seeking it. And then I found it's like, okay, cool, I can lean in here. And that became something. So if you're looking for something like that, reach out to me and let me know too, because I definitely would love to be a part of that journey and help in that process. But But yeah, man.
Love it, dude. Thank you, bro. You guys, I mean, you heard it here, y'all. I like doing life with winners, bro. If this ain't the perfect freaking podcast for you to be on, man, I freaking love it, dude. Thank you so much, Ben. This has been awesome. I got a whole page of notes. And y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in. We really appreciate every single week, man, that y'all are tuning in to the show. We really appreciate your viewership, your comments, your engagement. Again, hit up Taylor if you guys are looking for anything that we've kind of covered through this call. Just get on even just a discovery call with them, right? Going back to my weekly win. Have a conversation, create a relationship, man. You never know where that can go. So again, Taylor, thank you so much for hopping on, brother. Appreciate your story and everything that you brought to our members here. Hey, everybody, you know what day it is. It is Winning on Wednesday, which does not mean that the week is over. It is the peak of the week, and I'll leave y'all with this nugget. Go out there and control your day before it controls you. Appreciate y'all. Hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Go kill it. Thanks, guys.